All right. Our next question is from Cole on fats and protein. Hey, Rob, I really appreciate all that you have contributed to society. I recently finished your book, Wired to Eat, and I have a question in regards to fat and protein. How do I test my reactivity with different fat and protein sources? How many grams of fat or protein do I test with? Thank you, and I appreciate all you do.
Man, that's an interesting question. And Mike Julian, Rick Passamore, like a bunch of R.D. Dykman, a bunch of the dudes that are in the kind of low carb scene, but the Tyler and Luis, like they really asked some great questions around this. And with fat specifically, I remember there was a period of time when I was mainly watching because these guys are way fucking smarter than I am, but so we have an oral glucose tolerance test, and they were making the case that we should have an oral lipid tolerance test where you give people a given lipid, like oleic acid or something. You'd have to kind of figure out how exactly you do this because glucose is just glucose, whereas fats are typically a mix of different lipids. But then how long does it take to clear that? And that there would be some suggestions around like how metabolically flexible and healthy you are and all that stuff. Because in the same way that you don't want huge amounts of carbohydrate spiking in the bloodstream and also hanging out a long time, we really don't want huge amounts of lipids in there too. To my knowledge, other than in like kind of university and research settings, nobody really does a lipid clearance test, so I have no idea how you would do that. And then on the protein front, I have two thoughts on that. One is more the blood sugar type response. Some people do notice that when they eat a decent whack of protein that they feel hypoglycemic. So when we eat protein, if it's a legit chunk of protein, we should release insulin to kind of allow sequestering the amino acids into cells. But we also release glucagon, which generally should give you a little bit more of a bump in blood glucose than what you drop from the insulin release. Now, some people that maybe have pancreatic problems from inflammation, like they're almost kind of like a type 1.5 diabetic, some of these people will notice that they have some blood sugar dysregulation as a consequence of eating protein as kind of an isolated source. Not super common. There's some things that can be done to try to mitigate that. But again, I'm not really too sure. This is more of kind of a diagnostic of when things are...
Some people just notice that they feel... I mean, we have friends that like feel bad when they eat chicken.
Right.
And
so that's the other piece.
Is it more of like an objective...
So this is the other piece, is the immunogenic side.
Okay.
And this is within Wired to Eat, part of why I recommended not just looking at the carbs, but as we started reintegrating whole meals, being aware of, are you foggy headed? Do you have a rapid heart rate? Like all this other stuff. So there's potentially the immunogenic piece and then also the blood sugar piece. But I would say they're rare. Like they're really out in the weeds. It's kind of the last 2% of people or something like that. I don't know what the real number is, but Cole, the really good questions. But on the lipid, the lipid clearance story, like there's just not easy ways to do that. It's not generally done. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something that is done more in the future. And then on the protein front, unless we are experiencing overt kind of hypoglycemic symptoms as a consequence of eating a protein, then we start asking some questions around, is pancreatic function on point, and or do we have an immunogenic response? So like for ages, I had eggs all the time, and I would kind of feel like shit until about noon. And then I started asking some questions. I'm like, I wonder if I react to eggs. And I would cut the eggs out of breakfast, and lo and behold, I felt better. And I'm pretty sure that was an immunogenic response. And completely unbeknownst to me, your dad has a GI response to eggs. I had no idea that he did. And he's like, oh yeah, it's been that way for years. And like Nikki's dad is kind of like Wolverine, like he's hard to kill. The Wolverine thing. Oh, we're gonna get some good mileage on that. Keep your eyes open. Been some people just doing some douchebaggery around the whole Wolverine topic, but we'll let drop a little bit there. But so her dad's generally metabolically healthy, eats kind of low carb paleo, but I didn't know that he had reactivity to eggs, and he gets kind of foggy headed and all that stuff.
No, I think it's like straight to the bathroom.
Andy mentioned that he gets kind of foggy-headed too. Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can contradict me again so that I don't have an opportunity to make a nice, succinct point that makes sense and that people have some takeaways.
That's my job.
Yeah.